Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another series of webinar called I Wish I Knew. This series is also sponsored by Limitless. Today's episode title is Physical and Mental Preparation for University. When the idea of the original series of webinars called A Word of Advice was first born, we thought it would be nice to hear from a professional standpoint on what college kids need to do in order to succeed in the professional world. However, soon after, we realized that we need to include another webinar series that hosted young people, because these young people can connect on a deeper level with their peers. So then this new set of webinar started. These young people are either currently in university or are about to graduate from university or have just graduated from university. These guys could shed some wisdom on our young audience. So here we go. Let me introduce you to this lovely group of young professionals. With me today, I have Amani Al-Riyami. Hello, Amani. Hello. We also have Hamza Al-Bartamani.
Hello.
And Amal Al-Abbadi. We also have Sarah Al-Ma'wali. And finally, we have Barakat Al-Lamki. Thank you all for being here today. I know some of you were saying, we wish that these webinars were here when we were preparing for university. And I felt the same way too, because you learn a lot of information from these webinars, don't you think?
I totally think so. I really wish we had something like this back in our days, because this would have been very useful information to get back then.
Yeah, excellent. Of course. Yeah, me too. I think it's excellent information. Okay, so let's start. Our first question today, what was your thought process as you were landing on a major? Go ahead.
Well, Hala, I'm doing a double major in geology and natural resource management, and I am currently studying in the University of Western Australia. When I was younger, I always wanted to be an archaeologist. The thought of being out on the field, uncovering pieces of history and understanding how life was back then always appealed to me. I knew I didn't want a desk job. I knew I needed to be out and about exploring and just trying to find out what I could do. When I started becoming serious about my job, though, I realized that archaeology probably really isn't a good choice of a job. It is more of a hobby, a passion, something you can work on the side, but really doesn't bring in the big money when it comes to working as a full-time job.
Yeah, and especially, especially here in Oman, we do have archaeological sites, but not that many. So you don't really have a lot of jobs for that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so when I really started considering the jobs and what I wanted to do, I realized that my favorite subject in school was geography, and it is very similar to it. So it let me learn about the natural formations that surrounded me, and it allows me to learn about the various Earth processes and how Earth operates, and it came to be. And it's a fantastic major, like we said, because of the job market in Oman for geology there are many opportunities.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Geology is a perfect major for Oman. Thank you very much, Barakat.
Thank you.
Who's next?
So I'm doing a major in human resource management at the moment, and I knew I wanted to complete a major in business and have the skills and the knowledge that would benefit me in the business world. But I think what drew me into the field of human resource management was that it focused on one of the most important parts of an organization, its employees. It involved finding the right people, understanding their skills, and placing them into sectors of the business that best suited them. I think it looked at benefiting a business through understanding its employees and creating an environment for them to thrive, which I'm quite happy I decided on doing.
Yeah.
As for me, I started a bit earlier than high school. I started in grade 9. I had one of the best teachers that taught biology in the school, and she showed me what it is like to study your passion, and I just developed my own passion for the field. I wanted to study bioengineering. This is after I looked into all the different majors and fields of study in biology itself. And the closest opportunity I could get within Oman was biotechnology at Sultan Qaboos University. And that's basically how I landed my major.
Okay. All right. Biotechnology, very unique. All right.
Well, for me, I majored in emergency administration and planning, and I minored in counseling and human development and family science at the University of North Texas. So I would say I landed my major unexpectedly. I did not really choose my major. I would say my major chose me. So back in high school, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to study or major in. I was more focused on what my friends are taking. So everyone was taking business and chemical engineering and biochemistry. And at that time, I really was just confused. So when it was time to put my majors or the order in the government website, I literally had chemical engineer, hospitality, business management, and my sixth or seventh option was emergency management. So I got the scholarship for emergency management at the United States. I went for it. But then when I got into college, I realized that I was interested in mental health. And then I decided to take a minor in human development and in counseling. And I'm really happy with the decision I ended up doing or making.
Excellent. So basically what you're saying is that when you get a scholarship, then you have a bunch of majors to choose from, and you have to rate them by order. And so you don't always get your first choice.
Yeah, and that's something students really need to keep in mind, because you're not always going to get exactly what you want. So yeah, so I didn't get what I wanted, but when I got the opportunity to study abroad, and I thought maybe this is an interesting, major, so I just went for it and tried it out.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
As for me, I am a fresh graduate. I majored in process operation and maintenance engineering in Caledonian College of Engineering, which is now known as National University of Science and Technology. To be honest, I've always wanted to be a nutritionist. That's one thing I knew, but it never happened due to many reasons. So I had to think of the subjects I liked in high school. And I kind of was okay with chemistry, and I was bad in math and physics. I've always hated math and physics. So one of my options was chemical engineering. And that was my first option, and that's what I got, which is in Caledonian College. I'm the type of person who gets bored really fast, and I love change. And I did my foundation. After foundation, there was a 1 month gap, holiday actually, before we get into major. So that's when I did my research about chemical engineering. I had no idea about it before. Turns out it was too detailed in chemistry, and it involved math and physics. That's what engineering is. So I had to look into other majors that were available in college, and I came across process engineering, which is a mixture of mechanical and chemical engineering. And it was actually fun studying it. And after graduating, I can see that I can work in different fields. So I don't regret anything until now.
Alhamdulillah. Very good. Well, Amal, I was wondering, process engineering is a very much a male-dominated field. How was it? Did you feel anything different while you were studying in college?
Well, in college, alhamdulillah, over the years, the number of female students, they have increased. But when it comes to work life, like after graduating, while applying for jobs, I noticed that they prefer men over women as engineers, especially in the field. But other than that, it had like 5 years before, it wasn't like how it is today. It's way better for us as female engineers.
It's funny that you should say that. Like from my experience in biotechnology, it was the exact opposite. Like in during my studies, I'd be the only male with a class of 30 to 40 females. Like it was, like the females were dominant in the field itself. So it was also a struggle studying because I remember one time I had this course, biochemistry course, and I didn't hear the professor postponing or moving forward the test. He moved it forward. And then I didn't hear him say that. So it's really hard when you miss something and there's no one else to give you a heads up. So I came to the next lecture and I thought it would be a lecture. And then I was surprised that it's like a midterm exam. And then it just, like flipped my whole course up and down.
Okay, yeah, wow. Yeah, so you had the opposite. You were the
Basically,
only male around all these females.
yeah.
So interesting, so interesting. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Those are very interesting majors and how you came about to choosing them. Now, my next question for you is, I'm sure when you were choosing a major, there were some pressures around you, maybe peer pressures, maybe parents, maybe school environment. Could you talk more about the pressures that you faced while choosing a major, please?
Personally, if I can speak, I had, I think, almost all the pressures. Like I had pressures from my peers, I had pressures from my relatives, like my parents, my cousins, and also from my own concerns. I was always worried about the employment after graduating, because the field of biotechnology in Oman is almost non-existent. It's there, but it's hardly, like considerable. And I always had friends pushing me to either change majors, like Barakat and mentioned in the field. The jobs in geology are plentiful in Oman. They'd always push me to go into geology or geophysics, and I also had the same experience with my relatives. Some would push me towards transferring colleges entirely, like to go to the College of Engineering instead of staying in the College of Science. And I can say that the experience I had, like I had to take two semesters almost of courses that I didn't need to take, and I learned a lot from those two semesters. But in the end, it just strengthened my resolve to continue in my own, field, the passion that I wanted, which is biotechnology.
Okay, fantastic. Now, so how did you deal with the pressures when they were telling you you need to go into engineering or any other field? How did you deal with them?
I think it's stereotypical that most parents or families think that it's either you're a doctor, you're an engineer, and nowadays even a lawyer. Like the three mainstream fields that are like almost, or they believe to be guaranteed. Uh, when I thought about it back then, and I had a lot of time to think about my field because I started early on. When I got into university and I had started these doubts, I uh, I basically balanced out the potentials of each field, and I considered biotechnology to have a promising enough field for myself. So I just decided I'll follow my passion, and it's in the end it's my life I'm leading, and I wanted to study something and work in something I'd love working in.
Yeah, excellent advice also. All right. Anyone else would like to share?
Yeah, the pressure that I faced was choosing another major other than being a nutritionist. So back in the days in school, they took two students. I was in national private school. So I was one of the two students in an orientation in Shuwaifat School organized by Ministry of Higher Education. So during the break, I went and talked to the woman who was in charge of the scholarships. And I told her that this is what I wanted. And I was referring to the old Dalil al-Talib, I think they call it. So she said that it's unwanted in Oman, this major. And she advised me to think of other majors. That's like it. It ruined my dream. I had to think of other majors. So it was kind of a pressure for me. But then how did I overcome this? I had to ask people, I had to research, and I had to look into other majors.
So it does happen that sometimes high schools or people in charge in the education system, they could tell us that, no, you can't do this because you might not get a job. But there are nutritionists in Oman. So yeah, they're few and far in between, but you could have been a nutritionist. Any regrets?
Not really.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So Amal was speaking about going to Shuwaifat and getting some support on deciding what major to choose. What about all of you? Does anyone have any experience with school support in choosing majors or helping with preparing for college, or even family support as well?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, I feel like I got a lot of support. My parents and family members were great in providing life skills that are important for university. So I like to tell people, don't feel embarrassed about asking how to do certain tasks, no matter how normal or simple. Like, their elders are a great source of advice, especially those who may have just finished university, and I'm sure they'd love to give you their tips and tricks on how they did it. As well as my school, as a student of Knowledge Gate International School, I was also provided with various tools and support. School would constantly advocate events being held around Oman to help those preparing for university, and also provided guest lectures that informed us and guided us. And I cannot stress how important that was and to take immense advantage of that. But I believe one of my greatest forms of support were my high school teachers. Not only were they familiar with the system by having taught students in the same position years before me, but they're a great source of wisdom from what to expect beyond high school. They know ways to of discipline and organization, and I learned how to remain calm even when things get really stressful. They always know more than they say, and sometimes all you've got to do is ask, especially for mental preparation for university.
Yeah, you're very lucky to have really good teachers to guide you and support you.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. And that's great advice that you've given our young audience who are listening. I would ask you, could you elaborate more on what events did you go to here in Oman?
So there were events that universities come to advertise themselves to you, and you learn a lot because yes, you can go on the internet and look, but this is where you get to meet and greet people whose jobs at the university is to talk to these students and give them advice on why their university is good for you, or what subjects do they offer, what activities go on. So it was a great sort of deep first step towards looking at what universities have to offer and where to begin, really.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to share?
As for me, in school, not much, but at home, I remember I used to ask my elder sister questions about college, like how can I make new friends, or what should I expect on the first day, since I have been in the same school my whole life and I don't have much experience in entering a new environment. So yeah, I just kept on asking the people around me who were experienced.
Okay. That's our families are great support for us to ask questions and get support from. Excellent. I see someone from the audience has raised their hand. Would they like to come forward? We have Khadija. Khadija, would you like to talk?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Khadija. Ask your question.
I don't know if the camera is on or...
Would you like it to be on?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, all right. It's not on.
Yeah, sorry, I was actually typing my question while raising my hand. I didn't know which one was going to get across. But I had a question and not something specific to say or to share.
No worries. Ask your question, please.
Yeah, because since everybody was or talked about their experiences in high school and how they lacked or got enough preparation to go to university, I wanted to ask, is there any current plans being made to change the way the system is built right now?
Could you ask your question again, please? Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm aware that public schools and government schools are very, very different in Oman at the moment in terms of helping students prepare themselves for university. And I just wanted to know, is there a plan that is currently being made to change that?
Oh, okay. That's a good question, Khadija. And we have a webinar in November that will address the educational system here in Oman. And I will have guest speakers who are key people within society who can answer your question.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have any questions about physical and mental preparation for college today, please feel free to ask our speakers today.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, so let's move on to our next question. Now, we talked about school support and family support. My next question is, once you decided about your college, what resources did you use in order to move forward with your college application?
Well, I did make use of the university websites. A big resource that I made use of was, oddly enough, YouTube videos, either officially created by the university or by students simply just showcasing their daily lives in a vlog. I felt it was like a great source of insight getting to see it on a screen, as well as like the university's videos provided insight to what the city around it looked like, what campus looked like, where you'd be living, as well as had webinars that provided more details on like certain majors. Student videos were also brilliant at unbiased views into the university, into the atmosphere you'd be in, what the social environment would be like, and what to expect, things to think about, and what to be prepared for. You're getting information directly from the source with these vlogs. Someone who's already living there and probably had the same questions you would, and now they have the answers to those questions. So I thought YouTube videos were a great source of insight.
Great, thank you. In my days, we didn't have that. We didn't have. Oh, I'm sorry, Hamza.
No, exactly.
but you're very lucky, you guys, because during our time, we didn't have videos or vlogs to see the campus,
It's the same here in Oman. Like, there's no vloggers in Oman. I had no source besides the website and a single cousin that I had, which was in a different college, and each college had a slightly different way of doing things. So it wasn't exactly reliable, but it was all I had. So I had the website, and I remember this guy that I met on the first day in the masjid, and he helped me a lot understanding what to do, where to go. But besides that, it was only the website and any other relevant or supplementary information they gave us.
Hmm. All right. Okay. That's
See a question on the Q&A, and it's for students abroad. Would it be okay if I answered it?
of course. Go ahead.
So the question read, for students studying abroad, so Barakat, you could answer this as well afterwards if you wanted to. How long did it take you to get used to the new environment and new friends? So I moved to Scotland, and I'm studying in Scotland. And it took me about a week to really settle in, but it was more so my parents came with me. So they helped me get stuff I needed and helped me settle in. And so I guess it would differ whether your parents came along with you or not. And also with the new friends that I made friends with my flatmates very quickly, because those are sometimes your lifelong friends, really. And then on top of that, there were a lot of events going on in the first week, and just going to them gets you out there and it gets you figuring out everything. So it took me about 1 or 2 weeks, really. Again, it depends on the person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you meet a lot of people, and you're absolutely right. Some of my friends that I've met in university are still friends with me almost 20 years later. Yeah.
As for me, my brother came along with me, so he was my little safety net when it came to settling down over here. Just knowing I had someone else with me made my heart feel at ease. For me though, I went to college first, which I'll say later on, but it was a really small, really focused group of friends. So by the first day I was there, I was already talking to people left and right, and I actually ended up living with two of them that I met in college from my first day there. So sometimes it doesn't take long, but other times, if depending on university or where you're going, it might take some time.
Yeah. All right. So you guys come from a diverse selection of university. We have Hamza from Sultan Qaboos University. We have Amal from National University, which previously used to be called Caledonia. And then we have our Omanis who are studying abroad, Amani, Sara, and Barakat. Now, my question to you is, what attracted you to these universities?
Well, Hala, if I could go first, since my situation's a little bit different, I actually didn't get the choice to pick my educational institute. But I don't know if you heard that there is a Group A scholarship and there's a Group B scholarship.
In Oman, yes. Okay,
Yes.
tell me more about that, please.
For a Group A scholarship, what they really focus on is you applying to the university yourself or whatever educational institute you want to go to, and they will send you there on a full paid scholarship. A Group B, there's two types. So there's either a full paid or a half paid scholarship, and they will pick the university for you. For you will select your major, you will select what country you want to go to, and then they will pick which university. So no matter whether you got acceptance for somewhere else, they will still not give it to you.
Okay, I see. And can you transfer to the other university at a later point?
I personally know of some friends who have fought and have transferred their universities, but a lot of the time it is set in stone. Once you already go there, unless there is a very valid reason to change the university, so let's say lower fees or closer to home or closer to somebody, they will very rarely transfer universities.
Okay, so, all right. So if I hear you correctly, our young audience who are planning to go abroad and have gotten the grades and applied for the scholarship, then what they need to do is after they choose a major, then there's a group A and a group B scholarship. And if you're the group B scholarship and you choose the major, then the government actually chooses where you're going to study.
Yeah, so you get the option of choosing your major and country. But for example, I wanted to go to Melbourne, so I applied to the University of Melbourne. But when I got my scholarship to Australia, they gave me Perth. And when I tried to push forward the fact that I got an acceptance, they were like, you have to go to Perth.
Okay, I see.
And the scholarships really depend on the mark. So group A will be really those, in my time at least, who get 90 and above. And for the group B, it obviously depends on the major. So different majors have different cutoff marks. For geology in my year, it was 86.7 to go to the UK.
What? You don't want to hear what the cutoff was for us in during our years. During our years, 90 or 91 would get you business in Sultan Qaboos University, which is a great option as well. But you guys had a broader choice to choose.
Yeah, I get told off by my parents all the time. Like, you didn't have it this easy. We didn't have it that easy. Oh, God.
Yeah. Anyone wants to add?
Yeah, so I was a different situation, I think, when choosing my institute. So I didn't get the scholarship. And so, but my parents offered to send me. And what I decided on Scotland. Scotland is a lot cheaper than a lot of the other universities in different countries. And also what was really good about University of Stirling, because I was technically I was paying for my fees, they gave me a scholarship that knocked down how much it was, which really, really helped me and really convinced me that, okay, they're going to help me out. I should go. Also, what I loved about University of Stirling was it had a very large student union. The very friendly, the club, society, sports club, all student run. Their social media presence is really good as well. That's, I think, something to think about, especially because universities have social media platforms to try and get in contact with you. And you can see on Instagram, on Facebook. I joined group chats and spoke to people even before I got there, which was, I think, it immensely convinced me, like, okay, I feel a bit more comfortable now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. All right, and that's a good point for our students who haven't gotten a scholarship and have gone abroad, privately funded by their parents. Then there is a possibility for the university to pay for them. They just have to ask, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Anyone else, please?
Well, in Oman, it's a bit different. In my days, I have noticed that some students were more into joining an institute based on the environment. And some were focused on the academic studies itself. And to me personally, I went with the major, with the academic studies, and I didn't focus much on the environment because I went for the availability of the desired major, which was chemical engineering back then.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So here in Oman, you had a choice, SQU for chemical engineering or Caledonia or National University.
Yeah, it was for me.
Yeah, and then you decided Caledonia. Yeah, okay. So these are the options, guys. If you're in Oman, you do have options for majors here in Oman as well. And we have several colleges. All right, anyone would like to add anything else? All right. I'm gonna stop for a minute here and see if we have any questions from the audience. If the audience would like to ask any questions, please do.
Oh, I see an interesting question in the chat that I would like to answer. So,
Okay.
are most of you studying online? Currently, I'm in Perth, and the way things are over here is our cases, we have barely any cases, alhamdulillah. For the past 3 to 4 months, we've had 0 new cases. So the pace of life is really back to normal, but I still have a mix of online and face-to-face classes. So my lectures, all of them, anything that involves like a huge gathering, are all online. But my tutorials, so where I would attend classes and actually gain the practical skills, are all face to face. So I have a mix of both.
Yeah. And this is because of COVID, right?
Yes, this is because of COVID. And even before COVID, a lot of the tutorials and lectures were already posted up online anyway. So it's like you could, even before this, there are a lot of online options if you can't attend your classes.
Okay. Okay. What about here in Oman, guys? SQU and Caledonia, do you guys have any idea?
What I know that the previous semester as well as this coming semester is purely online. They're not exactly, they haven't decided, I think, after this coming semester, but for now, everything is purely online. Even the tutorials or lab sessions, they're basically demos.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyone else would like to add anything? Okay. All right. So before you go to college, whether it's in Oman, whether it's abroad, I'm sure you did some preparation. Would you guys like to let me know what preparations did you do?
So yeah, for me, because I was moving to Scotland, it's a complete weather change from Oman. So I checked, I had all the right clothes to combat the weather differences. And also it made a difference, especially because you want to be comfortable. I also checked my healthcare would be covered, that my accommodation was sorted, so that once I got there, I didn't have to worry too much. I made sure I had all my documents down to the littlest thing, like a copy of my ID, a copy of my passport, just in case of anything you have, because a lot of the times they do ask for these certain things in certain situations. They'll ask like, hey, do you show me your accommodation? Did you show me your enrollment paper? And it's just good to have these things printed out. So that was one of the most important things I did to prepare.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Sarah?
For me, before going to college, I went to this meeting that the government of higher education prepared for the students who were going to the United States. And during that meeting, they talked about our I-20 documents. They talked about our visas. What do we do when we go to the United States, and where do we submit our documents? And they also talked about culture shock and homesickness, and if the police stops us, what do we do? All these necessary like phone numbers, like the government, who do we contact? So those were all good information. And also during the meeting, they also talked about the allowance that they're going to be giving us. What are we going to be using that allowance for? So for like books and for our winter clothes and for groceries. So they told us how to manage our money. And also during the meeting, I met a few girls who had a group, and they added me into that group. And I met other students who were going to the University of North Texas, and they added me into another group, which is also for the University of North Texas, the girls that were already studying there. And I asked questions like about the weather, about what kind of things do I need to bring with me, what things should I buy over there. So that was all useful information that I got before going to the United States.
Yeah. Now, when you say groups, you mean WhatsApp groups?
WhatsApp groups.
Yeah, WhatsApp groups. Okay, all right. So you mentioned I-20, and that's something huge when you're a student going to the US. And for our audience who don't know what's the I-20, it's a document that you need to have up to date all the time, which means, and you get it from the university, and it needs to be signed every 6 months. You can't enter the US without this document that says you are studying in this educational institute. And every time you go on holiday, you must have your advisor sign that document. And you should make sure that it never expires.
Yeah, and if it expires and you need an extra semester, you have to make sure you renew your I-20 before it expires, or like lots of problems will happen with the government and the institute and all that.
May I just add something? So I think this is available for every country
All right,
that you.
okay. So go ahead.
I believe this is available for every country that you go to. So when I was going to Australia, there was a meeting for me, and I really think this is something that's underutilized, because not only do you get information about the country you're going to, what you can do there, what you shouldn't do there, you also get to meet a lot of people who are going to the same country. So you get to make your connections early. And it's a very nice thing to have someone knowing that I'm going to this different country, and there's someone else I know who's already there. Someone who's a student like me, possibly in the same state, same area.
Yeah, definitely, because that helps you like know like information ahead of, before going there and all that. So that's definitely useful.
Yeah. And I'm sure it helps also with the homesickness as well. If you're already, you know people, you're in a group, you're from the same country, so it really does help. Yeah. Okay. Now that we talked about preparation and what do you need to do before college, let's talk about once you get to college, whether it's in Oman or whether you're abroad, what necessary things do you need to do in order to settle in?
So something that I did when I first arrived to the United States, I was introduced to the international office, and I got to know the staff. And there they helped us look for apartments, and if we wanted to live on campus or off campus. They made sure we had international student meetings. They talked about they talk about culture shock, and they also talked about things like, homesickness and a lot of other stuff as well. And we got our student IDs, and yeah, so things like that is the things that I did before going to college or while I was there.
When I got to college or university at first, I had no idea where I was, what I'm doing, what I'm supposed to do. So the first thing I did was I tried to find the actual place, and I couldn't, and I was struggling with it. So the first thing I did was find someone and ask him, like a senior, and I just asked as many questions as I can. I got as much as information and as much cleared out. And wherever I'd go, I'd just ask and ask and ask, because it was helpless, like hopeless. Sorry, being in a situation where you don't know where you're going and you're struggling in the sun, and so settling in, I got to ask a lot of people, and I communicated with a lot of people. I tried to interact with them, and from there I started entering these student-run activities or clubs, and I got to learn a lot about how the system works and what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. And that's basically what got me settled down in SKU.
And you're lucky that you have that personality that would ask questions when you see someone, and that helps for you to understand your environment.
Yeah, it wasn't easy from the get-go. I mean, like no one wants to be seen as this freshman that's all like متبهدل, like he's in a mess and hal and all this, and then but you get over the embarrassment. I gathered, I guess, the courage to just accept that I look hideous and I'm in a situation where I need help, and I accepted help.
But also what I would like to say to all of you and for our audience who are listening, that even if you do ask the senior college students, they've been there before. They've been in your situation where they were worried. They were asking questions from senior students at that time. So I'm sure deep down inside, they're like, oh, I remember when I was in your shoes.
Yeah, they had that compassion, I guess. Everyone's been there.
Okay, all right. Anyone else would like to add? Okay, all right. So before going to university, a lot of us had expectations of how university would look like, feel like. And it could be that you got these ideas from movies, from your older brother, your older sister. Yeah. So can you talk to me about your expectations, and were your expectations met?
I touched on this a little bit earlier when I mentioned my college, but initially, no, my expectations were not met because I went to a college and most of the students there were from Southeast Asia and the community was quite small, like really, really small. By the first week, I knew about 80% of the people there, which actually isn't the worst thing ever. Because I made a lot of good friends, and like I said, I am living with two of them now. When I reached university, I was filled with excitement to get tossed into this, new world where I was ready to be challenged. And at first, it was a lot more challenging than I expected. A lot more difficult than I expected. Like the difference of workload that you get from moving just from college to university was incredible. There's no one to spoon feed you. No one's going to stay on top of you and tell you, do this, do that, do that. You are really your own person and you have to maintain your own responsibilities. There's also the aspect of socializing, so making friends. In college, it was easy because it was such a small community. But now, as you know, in university, you're sitting in a hall with 150 people. How are you supposed to turn to the person next to you and be like, hi, start a conversation? You really need to jump out of your comfort zone to do that. Eventually, though, I did overcome these obstacles. I got myself out more. I took every opportunity I could take. And I guess my expectations were met and met a lot more than I expected, actually. It surprised me.
I had a similar start where once I got in, I had expectations that everything would be smooth and clear. It was the opposite. It was tedious. And I remember losing my way looking for a single building, and I was circling the same building twice. And they had, like, I'm not saying the institute doesn't have like a proper organization or anything like that. They do, but the signs aren't hidden. They're not obvious at the same time. So I thought everything would be clear. And I remember coming in on the registration day, and the documents that I had to bring in were in fine print, and it's on me that I didn't read them. But the registration process was tedious. It was very tiring for me. And I remember they also told us that there's the foundation program, and there was a way to avail the foundation. You'd be exempt from it if you had like TOEFL or IELTS and SATs. So I came in ready with my SATs and my TOEFL, and the guy responsible had given me an appointment, and I came to him, and it was probably a bad day for him. I'm not sure how it worked, and I learned later on that these things happen. But he was talking to me on his way to his car, and he's like, "If you did so good on these tests, you'll pass these exams. So just do the exams. There's no need to bring me these tests." And then, unfortunately, like these type of scenarios kept on happening throughout the years of study, and it kept like lowering my expectations or my like standard of the university lower and lower. But throughout the through the final years of studying at SKU, you notice a big improvement. So I guess the expectations that I did have are being met for the following or the new generations.
Well, what I hear is that you struggled at the beginning, but alhamdulillah, يعني you overcome all your barriers and the hoops and loops that you had to go through, and alhamdulillah, you graduated. Yeah.
There's one good thing. It really taught me to improvise. Like I had to always improvise. So there was something good about it.
Yeah. And it also taught you resilience and perseverance as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I understood as well is that they've updated,
Yeah.
they've taken these issues and they've done
They have,
something.
they've resolved a lot of the issues that they had previously, and they've like made enhancements to a lot of the especially the orientation meetings in the beginning. They've become much better.
Good for the new people who are coming in. Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, for me, the college I went to was exactly what I expected in terms of the environment. The university I went to was super lively. Everyone was super nice. Once you get out of your lecture, you would see people you'll see live bands, you'll see university societies dancing and chanting. You'll feel like you're in a movie. And even you'll see like people giving out free food, and who wouldn't like free food? So that was super interesting in terms of the environment. However, when it came to the studies, it was not what I expected, because studies at the university is completely different compared to school. During school, like you'll have the teacher write everything out for you on the board. You'll have everything laid out for you. Like you're kind of like spoon-fed. But then when you go to college, you're in a lecture room with 300 students. The professor either has a PowerPoint out or doesn't. So it all depends on you and the amount of and how you take your notes. And yeah, so that's how I felt.
Yeah, I remember the notes part in university. I tried bringing a tape recorder to tape record the professor as they're speaking, and then who has time to listen to a lecture all over again for an hour or an hour and a half?
I did the exact same thing, and that did not work for me. So taking good notes, sitting next to someone who takes good notes just in case you couldn't keep up, or going to the professor after class, those are the things that you can definitely do. That could help at least.
I used to bring in my textbooks, the very big textbooks that they give you and you probably don't open. I used to bring them during my final year, and I'd follow with the professor, like where he or she is explaining. And then when I'd go, I'd take no notes. So when I'd go back home, I'd just open the book and I'd know which points that they deemed important or necessary. And that's where I would focus mainly. Like my final year was, I had little to no note taking, but before that I used to have an iPad that I took with me, and there's this program, OneNote, Microsoft OneNote. I'd upload my slides onto the iPad, and then I'd just take notes on the side. It also worked a lot, but then I just decided to change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, in high school, and this is something that our young audience needs to understand, is that in school, if you don't understand your teacher or you didn't understand the subject, you can go home and just open your book and study, you know, and understand the subject and just go do your test and do well. But in college, what I noticed is that not all professors are following the textbook that they've assigned to the student. Most of the exams are based on lectures. So you really have to take good lecture notes. I see you shaking your head.
No, I remember like when I first started, I'm used to like school where it's like you have to have all the textbooks, every single one. And I remember my first year, I met these fourth years and they're like, you don't need to buy all those textbooks. And I'm like, no, I have to buy them. I have to. And I bought them. And then I realized we barely use them. Or the lecturer would be like, oh, you don't need to buy this. Just use the slides. And I'm like, no. So it's a different way of learning. So in some cases, you don't really need the textbooks. So you have to just get used to that and figure out. It depends on the class. It depends on the major. It depends on the lecturer. But yeah, it's okay. I learned to be flexible about that.
Yeah. Speaking about the books, the textbooks, I remember I learned very quickly in university that you don't have to buy a perfectly new book.
Yeah.
You can go to a used textbook shop and just buy the textbook used. It's fine.
A lot of students who are fourth years sell them, and sometimes they sell them for really less than you originally would have bought them, and it's brilliant. So it's like take advantage of, like, on Facebook they always advertise, especially for like my uni.
Yeah, text. So you said Facebook. I can also think of, if you're a kid that's going to the United States, there's also Craigslist there that you could look up books that are being sold.
In my case, there's also an added thing where we have our university app, and on our university app itself, a lot of the times you will find people advertising, selling maybe their books, their calculators, whatever equipment you need. Like, it's not only limited to books. They offer so many different things, like lab coats also. You can usually find it for a way cheaper price than you would have ended up paying if you brought it brand new.
Right.
Well, to me personally, I didn't know what to expect exactly, because in school I was so deep into my comfort zone. So I expected everyone to be close-minded, but then I found out that everyone was different, and I kind of misjudged people around me without even meeting them yet. So I learned to respect the environment, that's first, and I was too focused on how to react in that environment. But then with time, I got over it and I got used to it, basically.
Yeah. And that's a mistake a lot of us do. We judge the book by its cover, and we go there having our own preconceived ideas of how people are going to be at university or a certain college. And you go there and, you know, you get surprised that that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I see some people from the audience are raising their hands, so I'll get them to come up. And one sec. We have Lujena working in the background. Could you open the mic for the person who's raising their hand, please? Rawan.
Hello.
Hi, Rawan. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay.
I have a few questions about accommodation, especially in the UK. Amani, if you could help me. So right now during this pandemic, you know, there are a few issues about fees, and if I could like book any like studio or anything, it doesn't matter anyways. um I don't know if I could like if my university starts online, or if they have like physical, you have to be there physically. So what do you think I could do right now? Should I book a place or rent some place in the UK right now, or should I just wait for a decision? Because I got a scholarship, but I still didn't receive my allowance, and I don't know what to do right now.
That's a very big concern, and that was a concern of mine as well, coming back to uni. So I'll first express my experience at the moment, and then I'll try and integrate it with what you're dealing with. So like here at University of Stirling, they're offering accommodation, all types of accommodation, but we have to isolate 14 days, since anyway we have to fly over. And they're isolating not only people who are international, but also students who maybe live in Stirling but have to drive and move to accommodation. They're still making them isolate. I don't know if that would work for your university, but since it's within the UK, it probably would be, since they all like to follow.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we are starting online, and there's a lot of systems in place to start online. They are thinking of gradually moving to face-to-face, but very slowly. So that might be the case. See, for me individually, I felt I wanted to come back because I feel like the environment is different when, even if you have your own place, it's sort of different to being at home. Of course, this is different to everybody. So I can't give you a correct decision like as to come or stay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but what about booking like
yeah,
accommodation in January? Is that easy to find? Like, can I find accommodation in January?
are you saying for like the city or the university accommodation itself?
No, like the private accommodations, not the university.
Yeah. So there should be a lot offering. Like at the moment there is, but a lot of students are taking it. It goes like in Stirling, because it's such a small little city, there's not always a lot of accommodation up to offer, but you can find on Facebook, there's different like booking websites as well for accommodation. Like I'm living in accommodation that's not the university at the moment, but I will say I got it before I left for Corona, due to
Okay.
Corona. So it's a very difficult situation, I'm not gonna lie. And I hope you figure it out. I hope
Hopefully.
my answer was somewhat helpful to some degree.
All right.
If I could interject and add something, I would also like to say that I advise against this, but this is also what happened to me. So by the time I came to Australia, I actually had no idea where I was going to stay, what I was looking for. I did zero preparation for my accommodation. Like I said, my brother came with me, so alhamdulillah, he booked us a hotel for a week. But and then after that, we just rushed left and right trying to find an apartment. Like when we got there, I used this website called Flatmates, and I think it's a worldwide website, so it's not only to Australia. But I used that website and I found a lot of places that were available for rent. So you could adjust this based on how much rent you wanted to pay, how many people you wanted to live with, and area. So that was quite useful for me, and I ended up getting really lucky and finding a solid place. So even if you get prepared before, sometimes when you get there, the situation might change. Someone might leave, and there might be a vacancy that you can get in.
All right. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Rawan. Let's see, I think we have more questions from the audience. No? Okay. So there's a question, and I see, Barakat, you've answered it, but I think the rest of the people might want to hear it. How's the food situation over there?
So for me, we had to, there's a lot of like, if you like, I remember my teacher, I was actually I told my teacher I'm going to University Cert, and he's like, okay, let's check out all the halal restaurants. And if you just search it up, it's they're always listed out, and they're always there. Even in the supermarket, there are sections, or on the packaging there's always like, this is halal meat, you can have this. And so it's not, it is worrisome to begin with, because you're like, you're a complete different country that obviously maybe Islam isn't the main religion there, so they might not always have halal meat at ready. But it's not as, I realize it's not as difficult as it might have used to be back then.
Yeah, like even in the United States, there are lots of like supermarkets, Arabic supermarkets, or like small baqalas. They have like halal stuff as well, and even like spices or anything in general.
Okay. What about, how's this food situation in the universities here in Oman? What do you guys do? I'm sure you have back-to-back classes, and sometimes you need to eat. Do you bring your own food, or what do you do?
I personally don't always prepare my own meals. Like I would do it occasionally, but usually there's these coffee shops centered like almost everywhere and scattered almost everywhere within the campus. And almost every college has its own coffee shop. So you can just grab a quick bite and rush to your next lecture session.
I actually never had anything from the cafeteria other than water and maybe coffee. Whenever I'm hungry, usually I eat at home, but whenever I'm hungry, there are so many restaurants around the college. So I leave because I have my license and I drive. So that was my experience.
Okay. All right. Another question from our audience. For those who are abroad, did you have a supporting group like Omani Society, Omani families, friends, embassy, etc.?
I would say yes, especially for our university. We had the Omani Association, and they were very like, they're very caring, and they're always there. You'll have like celebrations. You'll have Eid celebrations where people will gather in Ramadan. All the Omanis will join together and eat together. Omani National Day will have events. And yeah, so you will definitely have a support group over there, especially people from back home. Always, you know, they'll always be there for you.
Yeah. And it was great when you're away and you get a little piece of home away from home. Okay, go ahead, Amani, you were saying something.
Yeah, I think for me, because I wasn't on a scholarship, I didn't get as much support in that department, and I had to go and look for that. And I think that's important. It's like I had to make myself go, and because obviously you first arrive, you're worried, you're not sure, but there are societies, and my university is big on having so many societies, and there is an Islamic society, there's an Arab society, alhamdulillah. And so like you meet people like that, and you get to know people. And like even walking past, if I seen somebody that maybe looks Arab, I'll be like, Assalamu alaikum, and they'll say back, and we'll have a little chat. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to make yourself feel a little uncomfortable, but that's how you find people who you relate to.
Yeah, you have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic advice, Amani. Thank you. All right. We're done with questions today. I want to wrap this up, and I want, what is your advice for our young audience? Go ahead and tell us the advice you have for all our audience out there listening, please.
Well, my advice that I would give is that university is difficult. It really is. Like living alone is a sudden dump of 1,000 responsibilities. You have to suddenly do your own laundry, you have to cook your own meals, and you have to keep it clean. But I really think this is only scary in the beginning because it's a new experience. It's something you're not used to. Not everything will go your way and not everything will go the way you expected, but that's really just the way it is. Eventually, you'll grab hold of the ropes and you will succeed. You shouldn't be afraid to explore and try new things. So I only picked up my second major within my first week of university. So I never had the intention of doing it. But while I was there, I saw the opportunity and I said, why not? Um, but yeah, another tip I'd like to say is make sure you know how to cook. Learning how to cook is very, very, very important. Like it will save you so much money in the long run and it will keep you healthy. And of course, Hala, I know you've experienced this too. Sometimes when you really just want a taste of home, you just really want to taste that home cooking. And no one's going to do it for you unless you cook it yourself.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say to try to get in contact with someone if you have a friend there so you can bond with them. And don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Go take every opportunity you can to mingle and socialize, and you never know when you'll come across a friend for life.
Great advice. Thank you.
For me, I'd say what I think the biggest misconception, or what was my biggest misconception with university, was that I should be able to do everything as an adult does. Budget perfectly, make myself balanced meals every day, hand in all my assignments with no trouble whatsoever, and do laundry habitually every Sunday. And of course, we should strive for these things. It's okay to have a bit of a struggle here and there in certain areas. And I think I learned to ask for help. If I feel at loss, or if you feel at loss, to not be afraid to ask for help. There's tons of help at the university, whether that be a lecturer in your department, a personal tutor, student services, or even sometimes just a really good friend to point you in the right direction. And family will always be a helping hand. They're always just a call away. So I'd say don't be afraid to ask for help. We're not just adults. We're learning how to be adults, and I think we should make it a fun experience because it's something we're probably going to cherish for forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the best time of my life was undergrad. Excellent. Thank you.
I'd say the same as Amani. Like, ask as many questions as you can, clear as much doubt as you can. You're gonna struggle, so you might as well just know what you're going through and like what you're up against. And the more you ask, the more you know, and just try to enjoy it. Do things you won't regret, basically.
Yeah. Thank you.
I feel like everyone gave out some really good points and advices, and my advice would definitely be for students to study something that makes them happy. Other than that, for students who do not know what they want to study or what they want to major in, it's okay. I've been there. I was confused and I was lost. But one thing you should do is take time for yourself and don't beat yourself up for not knowing what you're getting yourself into. Take it easy. Just take it one step at a time. And if you do not like your major, change it. Ask someone, talk to someone, and you don't have to stick to something that you're not happy with. Because I remember not knowing what I wanted, and I decided to take counseling because I joined an organization for mental health, and that really helped me realize what I really wanted. So do something you love, and yeah, good luck to everyone.
Yeah, and I think an advice there for the kids is that even though you've been given a major by the government, you're not really boxed in. You can take a minor, you can take a double major as well. So you have options.
Yeah, you have options, and also fight your way out. Like you don't have to do something you're not happy with.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Exactly. I agree with what Sarah just said. My advice is don't depend on other people's experiences. Yes, you can ask, you can learn about their experiences, including ours, but yours will always be unique. So it's always on you now. It's all on you. Students who study abroad, they're not better than students who study in Oman, and vice versa. Keep that in mind. Focus on getting the maximum experience in those few academic years in terms of developing your skills and participating in events or being a part of a club or a project or a competition. Just get out of your comfort zone. It will build you up and you will take those skills with you everywhere later on. And believe me, companies would want to hire you over the students with higher grades and just basic skills. So just follow your passion, like what Sarah said. And if you don't know it yet, it's okay. Just try to find what you're interested in and follow that. And don't let anyone force you into any major that you don't want or you don't like. Don't judge in your first impression and keep trying and to get comfortable with the environment and find someone to vibe with.
I'd like to add one more thing. This is a journey, and I feel like it's a scary and sometimes complicated journey, but in the end of the day, you're going to enjoy you're going to enjoy it, and also enjoy the moments. And yeah, make friends and join organizations. Put yourself out there, because you might regret it. Because you're gonna finish college and you're gonna wonder like, what didn't I do? And you might regret it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great balance between education and fun time for yourself as well. There needs to be a balance in everything. And you're learning this in university right now. You're going to carry that over to your work life as well, because there you need to know work-life balance as well. Definitely. Thank you everybody. Thank you speakers for everything that you did today. In conclusion, there are high schools that do prepare their students for college, from selecting majors to filling college applications, etc. However, the majority of high schools here have not supported their students in this regard. I do urge more high schools to encourage their students to go to either career fairs or university fairs for them to understand and learn more about their next chapter in life. Another option is to arrange with other schools in their area to have a mini career fair for the public, in which school students can go and meet potential organizations in Oman. In turn, this will help them decide on what fields are required in the next 5 to 8 years or 10 years. And they can land on a decision on what major to choose from. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I would like to thank all our speakers for giving us the time to answer our questions. I also would like to thank two people who are working in the background. That's Istabraq Al-Riyami and Lujaina Al-Hinai. I'll also ask the audience to please don't forget to like Limitless Oman on the social media platforms. You have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you everyone again, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.